Join me in painting this beautiful watercolor seascape. The sketch required for this painting is provided here. I am sticking the masking tape over the horizon. Now I am wetting the sky portion of the paper. We are going to paint the sky and clouds using wet on wet technique. I'm tilting the board in 30-degree angle, so if there is any excess water, it will be collected near the tape. After tilting the board, I'm again wetting the paper. Using cobalt blue, I paint the sky. I'm using negative painting technique to paint the clouds. That is, we are going to paint around the clouds so that the clouds will emerge automatically. You can see I am leaving some white spaces. Those spaces become the clouds. I am going to paint some trees at the bottom right corner of the sky portion. So I'm going to use light value of cobalt blue to paint that area. By mixing little amount of permanent orange with cobalt blue, you get a gray color which is used to paint the shadow part of the clouds. After painting the shadow parts of the clouds, I washed the brush thoroughly in water and then I made it damp by using a waistcloth. Using that damp brush, I softened the hard edges of the shadow part of the clouds. After finishing painting the clouds and the sky, I wipe all the excess water that is collected near the tip. After that, allow the paper to dry completely. The paper is completely dry. I'm removing the masking tape sticked on the horizon. As my pencil sketch is dark, I'm erasing it to make it lighter. Next, using light value of cobalt blue, I'm painting the sea area. I'm using wet on dry technique to paint this area. After painting the sea area, while the paper is still wet, I'm going to apply a mix of cerulean blue with a touch of Verdian green over that same sea area. But this time it's going to be in a gradient style. At this point, I dip the brush in water to reduce the amount of pigment on the brush. Then I run the brush along the edge of the container to remove any excess water. After that, I go over on the paper to create the gradient effect. After painting the sea water, allow the paper to dry completely. Next, I'm going to paint the beach sand. For that, I'm using little amount of permanent orange which is mixed with cobalt blue. This is the base layer for the beach sand. After painting this base layer, I mixed more amount of permanent orange with cobalt blue to get this brown color to paint the beach sand. This brown color should not touch the sea water. Its value should get lighter and lighter when it touches the sea water. While the paper is still wet, I am using cobalt blue for the shadow of the trees that I am going to create next. Next step is the fun part of this video, that is we are going to create tree using sponge. For the base layer, I mixed more amount of raciana with Verdian green. Using little amount of water, mix this raciana with Verdian green and use your sponge to dip into this pigment and create the texture over the paper. After applying the first layer, allow the paper to dry completely and then move to the second layer. The first layer is finished and the paper is completely dry. Now I'm using a mix of more Viridian green with little amount of raw sienna to give this second layer. After applying the second layer, I allow the paper to dry completely. Then I move to the third layer. Here we are going to add the darkest value for the trees. For that I am using cobalt blue. Using a knife I scratched out some pigment from the paper for the trunk of the trees. At last I splattered some brown pigment for the pebbles on the sand. We reached the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. See you in another video. Until then, take care. Bye bye from Prema.